All right, guys, we are live. This is the UFC Las Vegas recap show live on the Sherdog network. I am your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Join me as always is the Duffy to the Shillan and Duffy, senior editor of Sherdog.com, the great Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, man?
I am doing better than Petr Yan.
Yeah, dude, I felt like I should have.
I mean, I'm tired. Don't get me wrong. I'm tired, but I'm better than Petr Yan.
I mean, I felt like we should do this whole show on like a GoPro, like strap it to our head. We'll start running and like, you know what I mean? Like out of just respect for Merab. Cause like right now Merab is probably like running up and down the strip a la Sean Shirk style. Dude, that was insane. That was his output in we'll get to all the fights. Obviously we're talking about the main event where Merab, this Dvalishvili, which I know I butchered his last name, took on Petr Yan. We're springing ahead daylight saving time tonight until tomorrow. That's simply just so we can catch up to Merab because like he's like an hour ahead of us. Like this dude is nuts. Dude, Merab moved more in that 25 minutes than Alexander Romanov has done in the last 6 months.
Seriously. Wow.
Dude, that absolutely insane. Let's get right into it. Main event, Merab Dvalishvili absolutely blanked Petr Yan, winning. I think it was 50-40. No, not a single round was for
50-45s all across.
Yeah, and that's how I scored it too. I think the closest round was maybe the third because there was a lot of clinching and stuff, but still. Let's talk about the pre-stuff before we get into the fight. And shout out to all the guys and girls in the chat. We'll try to get to all you guys as much as possible. Thank you guys. You guys are already rocking. I'll say this. For a fight night main event, this one felt really big to me. If it had it almost had like a pay-per-view main event feel to me.
Agreed.
Because I mean, and it was funny because there was no attention to this fight until like yesterday, and then like all hell broke loose. And there's a lot to it. Obviously, there's a war going on in that area where both those people are from. They're on opposite side, not them two fighters, but their armies, militaries, and whatever. I'm not even going to pretend like I understand the conflict. So, and I'm definitely not picking sides or anything like that. So, but still, obviously, that added some tension. There was a fight, a brief little skirmish where Petr Yan landed his best punch on Merab in 25 minutes when he throat punched Merab. The crowd was rocking. It was very pro-Georgia crowd. It was like, so it just felt so much bigger than just a regular fight. Like, imagine if this was on the Apex and nobody in the crowd.
Oh, absolutely. I was so glad they stuck this in a theater that holds 4,000 or 5,000 people. That's all you need to do. Like we're not even asking for like what they do when they go on the road and they go to like Columbus and Austin and San Antonio and they go to like 15,000 seat basketball arenas. Just put it in a theater. I mean, they were literally at what used to be the Joint at the Hard Rock, and it had that kind of old school big fight night vibe. It was great, and this fight deserved it. I think it's this very same fight. If I watched it in a quiet Apex, I would have been like, it was okay. But because there was a theater full of rowdy Georgians getting into it, but it was still small enough that I could hear like Ray Longo yelling between rounds, it just felt bigger.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane. I had a terrible pick. I picked Petr Yan to win this fight, but I had it reminded me a lot, looking at their stare downs, they're both in the cage. It reminded me a lot of Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor when they fought, where Petr Yan was like
tense
in the moment. Petr Yan was like feeling it. Like he looked like Jose Aldo, and Merab was in the moment. He was like enjoying everything that was going on. He's high-fiving everyone coming down, hugging people. And he had this like almost like a secret. Like he knows what's about to happen. And Yan, it seemed like the moment was getting to him. And I'm sure it's not easy walking into a room, Georgia flags all on your face, crowd against you. A lot of bad blood. Seemed like he might have already been a little psyched out at the weigh-ins. So you noticed that too.
I definitely did. I picked Jan as well, and I had him pretty strongly. Like, I felt pretty strongly that Jan was going to win this one, and I was nervous about that pick by the time the fight started. And by the end of the first round, I was like, I blew this one because, and I even said on the preview, I'm not going to be that worried even if Jan is down 2 rounds to none at the end of 2 rounds. I was lying because he was down 2 rounds to none, and I was like, oh, dude, he's toast. I think, I mean, we'll get to the X's and O's pretty soon here, but I feel as though maybe I underestimated the benefit of this being Longo and Sarah's third time prepping for this guy. Like, I think they've got Jan figured out to a certain extent.
I think that's somewhat true, but I think they also have the piece. I think it's the person too. Merab.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I was going to say is, like, I think it's a combination of the two, because I think in their planning with for Sterling, they're like, they could probably see things that, we know what Merab could do to this guy.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We always talk about, best cardio, who uses cardio as a weapon. We usually like to do it like it's a club where we're not going to pick and debate who has the best, because how can you? But guys like Max Holloway and Colby Covington and a whole bunch of other guys are in that. Obviously, Merab is in the club, but I think Merab might be old in that club. like the rest of them are paying dues to him. He's the club president.
One of the people in the Sherdog editorial Slack, and Shane Clifford, who's newly joined us, said he's the bantamweight Colby. I like that comparison. The undersized guy with the oversized motor that, even if the wrestling isn't working to get him takedowns, it's got the other guy shook enough that his striking runs off of it.
It would have been great if Merab afterward just said something like, "Brazil, you're a dump." Just for no reason.
Right. Yeah,
no reason. And Merab walks out with two paid
Instagrams.
Two paid prostitutes or whatever as he's walking out. I just, the thing about him is, when we break down his striking, it was always like this wild, crazy spinning back fist and huge. That wasn't the case. It was hard. It was a bunch of hard shots he was throwing. He's cleaned up his striking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he made Jan, between the mixture of his striking, his combinations, and obviously his and we'll get to all his takedown attempts soon. But he made Jan so uncomfortable from the very first second that fight started, because Jan is a guy that starts off slow. He sets traps. He's studying you. He's looking you. He's the master of what do you do? And he couldn't do any of that because he was forced on his back foot the whole time, backing up, constantly like retreating, constantly eating stuff, constantly reacting to everything. So he never got a chance to to throw, because it's like that. It's like that basketball player who's like a lights out basketball player, but you stick this defender on him and he just goes everywhere he goes, never lets him touch the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that kind of felt like that. Like, he was running everywhere he could, and just there he was, right on top of him.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Tyson once very famously said, "Everyone's got a game plan until they get punched in the mouth." If there's a wrestling equivalent for that, where their whole game plan, the way they thought the fight was going to go, is out the window within the first minute because of the wrestling, this might be the gold standard for that, along with like Islam versus the Bronx, where like Oliveira, you could tell that everything he thought was going to happen in that fight was not going to come true. Like the first time Islam kind of got his hands on him. I think that happened to Jan, because you're right. Like, Merab set a ridiculous record. He shot for 49 takedowns tonight. I'll wait to see the final percentages, but I bet he didn't land more than a dozen of them. He probably went like 12 for 49 on takedowns, which sounds terrible, but it was enough to make everything else work for him and keep Jan completely uncomfortable the whole time.
Yeah, but still, think about it. If you said a guy landed 12 takedowns in a 25-minute fight, you're like, wow, man, what a wrestling performance this guy put on.
Yeah.
I mean, he just made this an absolute dogfight where Jan could not get technical at all. I mean, it got to the point where Jan was just trying to throw haymakers, trying to land one big shot. If I was Jan's corner, I'm surprised we didn't see this. Merab is every single time was like moving. He was shooting on his hips at one point, probably about I think like late in the second, midway through the third. It just seemed like he shot 20 times in like a three minutes. I'm surprised his corner didn't say, feint knee, feint uppercut. Like you didn't see. I don't think Jan threw a knee the whole time. And I understand why you might not want to throw a knee because if guys want to take you down, you're lifting your leg up. Yeah, but you could also catch him coming in. He wasn't doing anything inside, like uppercut or. I was so surprised that wasn't more of a game plan.
Of the 49 takedowns that Merab shot, in your estimation, how many were snatch singles on the right leg? Because it felt to me like it felt to me like at least half.
Yeah.
Like, so he's not only coming in with, he's coming in with a takedown, you have about a 50-50 guess of exactly what he's going to do.
Yeah. I'm going to say something that I know it's not going to surprise you, but I think it will surprise a lot of people. I don't really think he was trying to take him down in a lot of those shots. I think a lot of the shots he was shooting just to get inside, just to make Jan work to fight a takedown. Because a lot of times you take him down, and it might even be easier to get up than it is to actually stop that original takedown. And it also, if he's defending a takedown, he's not throwing punches, and it's tiring him out. And Jan can do that. I mean, 49. Can we just give him 50? Like, like you could have shot with like 1 second left to get 50. Like a sweep single way outside. 50 takedown attempts. I mean, I'm thinking, the NCAA wrestling tournament is this weekend. I'm super pumped for coming up Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Super pumped for that. I think about a guy like a defensive wrestler who's just not known for not a lot of output. A guy like Pittsburgh Cole Matthews or Penn State's Max Dean, who's the reigning national champion at 197. I don't know if Max Dean has shot 49 times in the entire season. Like, I don't know if he has.
We've had 5-round fights in the UFC with fewer strikes than that thrown.
Jesus. Think about this. He shot more times than double the amount of punches thrown by William Knight a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
Or triple the amount? It was absolutely incredible. And then not only was that impressive, but when it got to the 4th and 5th round, and we're like, all right, now Petr Yan needs to knock him out. That's not Jan's game. He doesn't have the he doesn't have the output where you can kind of get desperate and now you just kind of throw everything at, kind of like what David Grant was doing late against Rafael Sunsao or something where I'm desperate. And something. That's not Jan's game. And while Jan can crack, he's not Derek Lewis. He's not put you out. I mean, obviously he can, but that's not really part of his game. He's more stun you, drop you on your ass. But he's not knock you out cold. That I just felt. I mean, go hit about midway through the 3rd round. I was like, this fight's over. Like this is just gonna look like this for another 20. For the rest of the 25 minutes.
Completely agreed. I mean.
Okay. Not much to talk about. Let me ask you this. What do you not who do you give Petr Yan next, but if you're the UFC, you have a guy who's now lost 3 in a row. He's lost 4 out of 5. He's lost to your current champion twice. He's lost to probably your 2 top contenders other than Henry Cejudo's challenge for the belt. Like he's lost to Sean O'Malley. He's lost to Merab. Well, I'll pause that for a second. One thing I want to talk about how impressive. We talk about Petr Yan and this losing streak, but we also talked about how you could honestly argue if everything broke right for him, he'd be undefeated.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore in his career. No. Like that narrative is gone.
Yeah, he has the first unquestionable, like no asterisk loss of his career.
Wait, people are saying he's lost 4. No, he won 1, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did he?
Wait.
No, Jan won 1.
Yeah. He
or are they saying it was like a controversial win? It's probably is it one I'm thinking about where he won like a close fight?
No, because he beat Sandhagen.
Oh,
yeah. I didn't think that was that controversial.
No. He beat Sandhagen.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're just forgetting that.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's lost a lot. He's lost to the guys in the division. He's not a big bantamweight. Where if he went up to 145, that's not going to help him.
No.
but he's not going to make 125, so that doesn't help him. He's fun to watch, but he's not like, he's not knocking guys out. He's not like a fan. Like people are naming their fan favorites, then no one's naming Petr.
No.
Maybe a really snobby boxing fan, maybe, but and he doesn't speak English, so he's not the most marketable guy.
Nope, not that marketable. And even with the translator, he's just not a whole lot of personality there. There's nothing bubbling up.
No. If I'm the UFC and people are gonna hate me for saying this, like I'm calling one championship up again. Like, hey, I do another trade. Like, who's giving you a hard time? Because I really feel like he has no value right now.
And it's an unfortunate thing. I mean, on talent, he almost certainly still is a top 10 fighter,
Sure.
But he's kind of in a corner where now he's making ex-champion money, and the UFC doesn't really have much they can do with him. Quite a few people in the chat have been wondering whether he's going to retire early. I mean, he's only 30, but he seemed disinterested after the O'Malley loss. I mean, he was threatening to retire then.
Yeah. 1 foot out the door. I'm assuming he's joking when he says Mita hates Russians because Habib Nurmagomedov got a lot of hate.
Yeah, we hate that guy.
And the media was bashing Usman Nurmagomedov after last night. They were saying how terrible he looked, right?
Yeah.
Fedor. He doesn't get any love either.
No.
I'm assuming he's joking with us. So let me ask this question before we get to Merab. And get to the actual guy. Yeah, technical that says Jan for DJ. I don't know if one would do that right now. Would one trade Jan for DJ? You might have to toss something else in there.
And would DJ want to?
And would DJ, yeah.
Because that's the whole other thing. The whole DJ for Askren thing only worked in the first place because both those guys were down with it.
Yeah, that's true. We might have to throw Cody Garbrandt in there too. Like or something. I don't know. We matchmake, and obviously when we do our matchmaking, we do it that nobody can say no.
Right.
But you're the UFC, and let's do in the real world for a second. I'm picking up the phone and I'm offering Merab to people. Who's saying yes right now after watching that performance?
I don't know, because here's the thing. It's rough when the UFC booth spent like a full 90 seconds talking about how awesome Raufeon Stotts is.
Well, Raufeon
Stotts, who is in Bellator and is not coming to the UFC anytime soon.
He's the champion. Well, yeah. There was a little bit of who the F is that guy kind of thing.
Well, from DC, DC probably could name all the UFC champs right now.
Yeah, DC was. I believe that DC actually doesn't know the answer if he was a champ. I think Paul Felder was doing a little like we're the big boys. We don't pay attention to the. Is he the champ?
Well, he's trying
Paul
to balance
Felder is teammates with Sergio.
I was going to say
yeah. Like he knows.
And I mean, he's been teammates with Raufeon Stotts for a long time when they were both a Roufusport.
Yeah. That's my point. Yeah, he knows what's going on over there. I thought that was kind of funny. Still, I'm sure Bellator was actually still just happy that they were mentioning it because there's people who watch UFC who doesn't know who Bellator is.
Yep.
Which means they got some free advertising. Okay. So we obviously have a huge dilemma where Merab is calling Aljamain his brother. They won't fight each other. He did slip for a second. I don't know if did you catch that slip?
No. What did he say?
He cleaned it up right afterwards, but he said, me and Aljo, we train every day, so we know who the champion is. And then he goes, then he fixed it up, and he's like, and then he goes, no, he's the champion, and I'm not going to fight for the title unless he moves up. Like he kind of cleaned it up a little, but there was like a little bit of like, I don't have to say anything, but we both know what's up.
Wow.
If I'm the UFC, I'm like pulling out just. Did you hear what Rob said? No, not what he said in the cage. Did you hear what he said to the guy who was walking out, saying like, Aljo better go to 145. Did you hear them say that?
No, wow.
And then I'm going over to Merab and saying, hey, Merab said, like, he laughed when we asked him about a title challenge for you because he said you are no challenge.
That's kind of funny.
And then I'm, it's like, oh, hey, Merab, you notice how much time like Ray Longo pays attention to Aljo but doesn't pay attention to you? Like that's what I'm doing.
Trying to get stuff stirred up.
Yeah, I'm sending a picture of like Aljo's girlfriend, like giving Merab a hug. Like I'm stirring that shit up because one, it's a good story. But obviously, I'm joking for a second, and that's not really going to happen. But, I mean, if in our world, it's Merab title shot, no, right? Has to be.
Well, I mean, for Merab, if Cejudo beats Sterling, I want Merab versus Cejudo.
Okay. If Cejudo wins, this really two stories, because you have the Merab.
Mm-hmm.
The Merab avenging Aljo, but you also have Cejudo and Sean O'Malley, who was already said he was getting the next title shot if he beat Jan. They've been barking at each other for like 2 years now or something, and that's a good stylistic matchup. But so obviously Merab is too. But can Merab's wrestling work against Olympic gold medalists?
That would be the question. I mean, I want to see that matchup. If the UFC wants O'Malley to have any sort of shot at a belt, they might want to wait till some of this dust clears.
Yeah. I mean, all three of the guys. I think of the three guys that would be in the picture for O'Malley, Cejudo's probably the best stylistic matchup. Because think about this for a second. Who's the least likely guy to wrestle him?
Cejudo.
You got Georgian wrestling guy who really doesn't have any international. Aljamain Sterling, a D3 wrestler, and then you have Olympic gold medalist Henry Cejudo. And of those three, Henry Cejudo is the one who's least likely to wrestle with him.
And yeah, Cejudo's just going to want to box you.
Yeah. And obviously he's older than those guys. He's got more wear and tear, and if Cejudo wins, I mean, like, if Cejudo wins the title again, you're also still at that point in your career. Like, do you really want that crazy Georgian guy coming at you, 100 miles an hour?
No. He seems like an absolute nightmare to fight. I mean, flat out. And that goes back to the Colby Covington thing. Like, Merab just drowns people. And we've talked on this show before about ways I don't want to die. Drowning is it, Yeah.
He one foot up there asked how would you market Merab? I think you market that insane, like, Tasmanian devil style. Like, you have to sell his style.
And you can especially if he becomes the first Georgian champion in the UFC, then he's sort of leading the charge of this sudden massive group of Georgian fighters invading the UFC. Roman Dolidze, Giga Chikadze, Ilia Topuria. Even though he fights out of Spain, he is Georgian.
You forgot that we've already had a UFC Georgia champion, Forrest Griffin.
I knew you were coming with that.
Was he originally from Georgia?
Yeah. I mean, dude, Kamaru Usman is not the most exciting guy in the world, but the fact that he kind of spearheaded this new crop of African contenders, and even he, specifically being of Nigerian descent, worked along with, Izzy and Sadiq Yusuf and just anything you can hang on these people to give the casual fan just something that, I remember the guy because, like, they can't all be Conor McGregor.
Yeah. No. And it wouldn't work that way anyways. You can't.
Yeah.
Like, when not to do WF, but you only had one Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone could do Ric Flair. Someone had to be Hulk Hogan. Someone had to be Stone Cold, like and they all worked, and I think you could, I think that's what you're just crazy man. How you get it? Wait, like Action Man. Like we say we watch fighting for 25 minutes. No, when Rob, they're actually fighting 25 minutes. Like I had this big debate with my friend Felipe, and don't hate on the Europeans, but my friend Felipe is from Brazil, so he loves soccer or European football, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that small sport that not many people play. But so he's always talking to me about it. And like that. I'd rather watch paint dry than watch soccer. Sorry. And guys, don't get me, whatever. If I grew up in Spain, I probably would love it. Okay. It is what it is. Like if you grew up in America, you'd probably love football. American football. It is what it is. But the one thing I always say with him, he always likes to say, oh, they're running for 90 minutes. Like, no, they're not running for 90 minutes. A couple guys with the ball and the defenders are running, and the rest of the guys are slowly jogging around them. Right. And then there's like a guy who's like sprints real quick and they try to kick it to him. But like they're not, it's not Usain Bolt sprinting. That's like, stop pretending that's what they're doing for 90 minutes. But that's pretty much what Merab is doing for 90.
Yeah.
Like he might not have sprinted for 25 minutes, but he sprinted for like 24 and a half minutes. Like there might have been a couple of times, where he technical nice job. That guy is he's always so funny. Anyways, the Europeans get super mad if you say anything even remotely negative. I understand it's the most popular sport in the world. I get it. You win. Okay. I'm not gonna debate you on Twitter. You win. All right.
But Bo Nickel would be the best soccer player in the world, in 2 years if he tried, right? Yeah.
Of course. So Aljo wins. Now what are you doing, Merab?
Aljo moves up, hopefully. Otherwise, they're going to have to make the fight.
Yeah.
And both these guys sound like it's never going to be made. So
I feel like because you have Sean O'Malley, that you have that, like, all right, Cejudo wins, we give it to Merab. If Aljo wins, we give it to Sean O'Malley. And well, I think Sterling versus O'Malley, that's a terrible stylistic match for O'Malley. Like O'Malley, that still would be fun talk at the press conferences, and in the embedded would be really fun, and say what you want about Sean O'Malley. I know a lot of people love him. It seems like even more people hate him. He did prove against Petr that he's an elite talent. Whether you thought he won or not, he showed that the good dude is talented.
Yeah, he's an elite striker in particular. He's one of the best strikers in the UFC. I think he is at a bad stylistic disadvantage, especially against Merab. But
so the one guy. So I said, okay, if Cejudo wins, we'll give Merab the shot. But if Sterling wins, we give it to O'Malley. So what do we do with Merab? And the one I'm going back to my question earlier where I said, who's the one person that would say yes without even thinking twice if you offer Merab? And I was looking at the division who made sense. I'm not going way down to the 40th guy, Marlon Vera would always say yes. Like
Marlon Vera would.
Yeah. So I'd give him the winner of Sandhagen and Marlon Vera. Not predicting Marlon Vera to win. You'll find out in 2 weeks who I'm picking. But Marlon he seems like the guy who he would have
like Marlon gives fewer fucks than just about anybody in the UFC.
Yeah.
It just seems like I like that. I like either of those guys if that has to happen. Yeah.
All right, yeah. So obviously we'll go with they don't trade him, which obviously I'm just talking. I don't really expect them to trade him, and he doesn't retire. And I know some people throw it out there, but what are we doing with him?
He needs to step way back. He needs somebody who is on the outskirts of the top 10 looking in.
Yeah, I agree.
Ricky Simone and Song Yadong are fighting in they're fighting, 6 weeks from now. That gives Jan a little extra time to fix his face and maybe regroup a little bit. Give him either the winner or the loser of that. I don't really care which.
Yeah, that's like the exact matchup. I went with the winner. I wrote down the wrong names though, but yeah, I put Song Yadong versus Rob Font, whatever. That's not
right. But I mean, if it's a close fight and one guy's a broken orbital and can't go, I'm fine with him taking on the loser. Just either of those guys is probably in the right neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm putting him way back. Like it's time for him to. I mean, he's got to go on. He's honestly, to me, he's kind of got to have to go on a Merab type run where he wins 7 or 8. Cody Garbrandt,
one foot out the door, needs to change his name to 1 foot in the grave, because that is where he's trying to put Cody Garbrandt right now.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, who knows? Wrestling Garbrandt, that we saw the other weekend. Maybe he'd have something for Jan. No, he wouldn't. He'd get dusted.
What about? Yeah, I know. What about? I agree with your matchup. That would be your first one, but Rob fought Adrian Giannis winner. If Giannis wins, he kind of would deserve that. That'd be a fun fight.
And I was thinking if Giannis wins, he might even deserve more than that, but he's going to have to wait because he will have won like 6 or 7 in a row in the UFC at that point.
Yeah, and that's the kind of issue, and we'll get to that as bantamweight is a little bit of a theme that we have tonight. Yeah, we'll get to that, how deep the division is. So, anything else you want to say about this fight?
No.
Because we still have a bunch to go. Alexander Volkov versus Alexander Romanov. Alexander Volkov won by first round TKO. We talked off the air. And I told you this. I'm not taking a loss. I'm not taking a loss in this fight. I'll tell you why. As soon as he weighed in on Friday, we filmed way before that. I switched my pick. I said no. The guy came in. He looked physically horrendous.
Okay, I this is going to sound flippant, and it's not meant to, but he comes in and he's back to the 265-pound guy he was 2 years, but looking worse. I mean, he looked like Cole Conrad. I mean, he looked like a bag of milk, and like didn't even bother to get a haircut for this. He had hair and just like, is he depressed? Like, is he okay?
His body looked like. We'll remember this because we're old, but the younger lads in the chat won't remember this. But remember, like a waterbed when you take off the cover, what a waterbed would look like. That like dark blue, like that would just like you touch your hand, the whole thing would move. That's what his body looked like.
Oh,
old school 1980s, Fearless Bueller Day Off type waterbed. I love they said, yeah, he feels renewed. He has a whole new team. His coach moved and he didn't want to go with him, so he got a whole new team and teammates. I'm like, what is that? What's his new team? 5 Guys and Ben and Jerry's? Like, who's he training with?
And it was a disaster.
No, I'm not even joking. When he took his shirt off and was walking to, like, when he took, he came out of the cage and they were announcing him. If it wasn't fight night and you just, some guy, a friend of mine sent me a picture of Alexander Romanov, says, hey, what do you think about this fighter in that shape? I would have thought, and I'm like, who is that? Like, I don't know if I remember like exactly Romanov's face, and everything. It would take me a while to figure out who that is.
Like, wherever he is right now, like sitting at home, Roque Martinez was like, damn, dude,
Yeah.
Like Blagoy Ivanov was like, oh, Shillan and Duffy thought my beach body was, unacceptable. Look at this motherfucker.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I love like me talking about, other people's bodies. I go on a diet every Monday and quit by Tuesday. But so I know I'm a hypocrite. All right. I want to talk about something because we'll talk about Volkov for a second because I kind of feel like we're clowning right now instead of talking about him. There was one issue in this fight, and I don't know if you caught this. Romanov, he shot in as soon as he can. He had a single. The key to Romanov's victory is getting Volkov down. Even fat Romanov, when he's on top, he's a scary guy.
Yep.
He was moving Volkov, which you want to do on a single. You kind of move him around. And Volkov grabs the fence with his freaking go-go gadget arms. Even though I think they were in the middle of the cage, he still could reach the fence. And Mark Smith just says, like, Volkov, don't let go of that. And I'm not saying he was going down because it was one of those, like, it's close to whether he's going to go down, but we don't know. But I'm sorry, there's got to be a point there. There's got to at least be a point there.
There's got to be a point there. And again, it's a foul. It is what it is. Keith and I are both on record as saying fence grabs are not called nearly as strictly as they should be because they're never accidental and they're always fight altering. But
yes,
even if he gets a clean takedown there, I think it just prolongs the inevitable because Romanov's top control is not good. His whole problem is that he gets tired from having to do mat returns 5 times around.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was going to matter, but I will say this. His top control in the first round against Tybor, and again, that was like Junior Romanov. So it was
Junior Bacon Romanov versus like double Romanov.
Yeah, he was looking pretty good. He was brutal on top. Like he beat the piss out of him. Volkov has struggled with wrestlers on top. Curtis Blades, Tom Aspinall. Again, I don't want to seem like a bitch because I picked Romanov. Again, I switched my pick. I'm taking a win. I switched my pick. I agree. I don't think it would have mattered. That might have got that one takedown, and maybe he does stay on top of him for the whole round. Maybe he doesn't get up, but even if he stayed on top of the round, he still would have like gassed. Like he would have gassed having to push off Volkov to get back up. That'd be like that's like a half a burpee. You know what I mean? Like he can't do that. My issue though is because Romanov came in like looking so shitty. I feel like I almost feel like Volkov got ripped off. And what I mean by that is we didn't learn anything about him. Like I don't feel better about Volkov now than I did yesterday. Like it's a good win.
Yeah. No, Volkov beats that guy 10 times out of 10. Yeah, I completely.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, I don't know if like Volkov's always been that guy. Like I hate using the word gatekeeper because it's like 8,
it sounds insulting, even though.
Yeah, and it's like 8,000 definitions of it. Like, what is it? Someone says like Volkov to me as a gatekeeper. I'm like, what are you talking about? The guy's like a top 5 guy. I think a gatekeeper. I think a guy like if you beat this guy, you get in the UFC. If you don't beat this guy, you don't.
Sure,
but there's different levels, and I didn't learn anything about this guy. I've always known he's good. I always know there's a lot of heavyweights in the world he's going to beat.
Yep.
I don't feel better like him going against Curtis Blades next week because I saw him stop takedown from Romanov.
No, he's one of the gatekeeper types that is just a hard dividing line because the guys that are beneath him, he just makes it look real easy. And the guys that are above him, like Derek Lewis is the only one I can think of where he actually looks pretty good in defeat until usually they just crush him. Yeah.
And the other thing is when we're talking right now, like I was watching Twitter, nobody was saying like, wow, Volkov looked amazing tonight. He just took out a top 10 guy. Like so easy. Took a top 10 guy out in like 2 minutes, whatever it was. It was just like, oh my God, Romanov is not the same. What a bum. He looked like shit.
Yeah.
So let's do it. Because of that, I mean, I didn't think Volkov was getting a title shot or anything like that, but what are we doing with him?
One point I wanted to make, and J-Sax just points out, aggressive round 1 Volkov is a newer development, and it's the best thing for him. Like, this is twice in a row now that he has crushed a dude in the first round, and that didn't used to happen just because he was so tentative in the first round.
That's fair. Okay, I think that's fair. But it's also like if you're a sniper and there's a big ass buffalo standing right in front of you, like you got to take your shot.
No, I agree, and especially on this one. But Jairzinho Rosenstrike is exactly the kind of guy that he would have been super cautious in the first round against before.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I was looking at our rankings, and of course, if you're looking at rankings, go over to Sherdog.com. Where both me and Ben we're just maybe 10 of us who kind of. The whole website can vote on it, but really there's like 8, 9, 10 of us are really active. Me and Ben are 2 of the more active ones. I was kind of looking, and he's faced everybody.
Yeah, because he's been in the UFC for a long time now.
So I'm going Sergey Spivak.
That's exactly the person I had.
And honestly, this is going to sound crazy. That might be a number 1 contender matchup. Besides, this is me assuming Stipe is booked, done, signed, done.
Yeah, they're almost the only 2 guys in the top 10 that haven't faced each other. Like it pretty much has to be.
And of course, that's me dissing Curtis Blades as we always do because Curtis Blades ain't getting a title shot ever, even though he deserves it. Romanov, I'm going way down. I'm not giving him anybody even close to top 10 rankings. He's lost 2 in a row. I'm giving another guy who's struggling. Kind of looks like he's on the same diet. I'm going with Chris Dawkins.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I was giving him a guy that used to be in the absolute basement and is kind of moving his way up and deserves a little bit of a name. I was going to give him Justin Tafa.
Okay.
But I like
I'm cool with that.
But honestly, if he fights Dawkins, if one of those guys loses and looks terrible, they'll probably get cut.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But you know what I feel bad about Volkov, where again, and I think Juicex did have a good point about more aggressive. But the thing about Volkov, I feel like with a division being that you're 1 week away from UFC 285, John Jones, which is probably, with all due respect to Conor McGregor, probably the biggest star in the sport right now. He's a new heavyweight champion, which kind of gets us talking about heavyweight right now. It was Volkov's kind of chance to get some buzz more than normally gets, and he gets nothing.
Nope.
In a very first round stoppage over a top 10 ranked guy.
And
I kind of feel bad for the dude.
Yeah, he got shortchanged. This should have been a bigger night for him.
Against a guy that we historically would say is a bad stylistic matchup for him.
Mm-hmm.
So, damn Volkov. Damn Romanov, why'd you do that to him? Before that, we waited 2 more weeks. Supposed to be a main event, but I think the wait was worth it. Ryan Spann took on Nikita Krylov, and all hell broke loose. It ended the first round submission for Nikita Krylov by Triangle. But dude, it was freaking nuts while it lasted. They were scrambling all different kind of positions. I think there was about 12 submission attempts in this like 3-minute fight, or whatever it was. Tell me what your thoughts were on Ryan Spann and Nikita Krylov.
One of the wildest 3.5-minute fights you'll ever see. It was a better, more technical version of what Ovince St. Preux and Tyson Pedro gave us a couple years ago, where they were just rolling around. Yeah. But here, there were more legitimate attempts. I mean, Spann, like, he had the guillotine, he tried an anaconda choke, he tried a Bravo choke, and I thought, I thought he had it a couple times, and then Krylov survives, and he finishes it with a triangle that, as good and underrated as Spann is on the ground, I don't think he saw the setup coming, and it surprised him. And
well, he also like fell into it. He fell like right into it. It reminded me a lot of like Ivan Salivary, Joe Riggs. I'm going way back, brother. Go back in the time machine.
Salivary was a tricky, sticky man on the mats. He was a lot of fun.
While Spann had a bunch of submission attempts, I really thought when there was scrambles, he should have broke away, because we had about a 5-second stand-up battle, and he hurt Krylov. He like his first jab, he was like stuck him right in his face, and I really felt like he was fighting Krylov's fight. And Krylov was beating him to the scramble positions, beating him to like the dominant, the points. What do you want to call it? The points of contact, scramble positions. Where Spann was tossing up submissions, but in a reactive way.
Yeah.
And then to eventually you get caught, Nikita Krylov put you out. Krylov's not letting run right now, man. And he's so likable. I'll tell you why. Like, he's very inconsistent, but he's starting to finally be consistent. Again, take that what it's worth. But like, he's super goofy when he does an interview, but like in the most likable way. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like Nikita Krylov and Amanda Hebus could be a couple. Like they both, but like Nikita Krylov would be the guy, like, you know, all of a sudden I hear like the rolling of barrels in my front yard, and I look out, and Nikita Kryl's like bringing in my barrels, like waving at me, hey neighbor, you know, like I just get my barrels. I figure I bring yours in, you know. But then his fighting style is fun as hell. I mean, he's got like something like 30 wins and 28 of them by stoppage or something. Like, it's something nuts like that.
Yeah,
it's something absolutely nuts. I'm giving him a big match.
What do you got?
I'm going with a rematch against Jan Blachowicz. It's been 3-4 years since
he asked for it. I put that on my list as well. Give the man what
he asked for it.
Yep, he asked for a rematch with.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Nice job. So you even had a good call out. So
yeah.
Spann, it feels like it's always one step forward. You start believing him, one step back. Which in fairness was the case with Krylov a couple of years ago.
Exactly,
and definitely was the case with Jan Blachowicz before.
And some guys graduate from that field, and some never don't. Like Iwan Kudalaba and Ovince St. Preux, like, just, you know, they never have. Krylov has, Blachowicz has. maybe Span will. Like, he is still pretty young, and if his story is to be believed, he's really only started training more seriously recently. I guess we'll see. But for him, like, are we talking about what's next for him?
Yeah. If you're matchmaking, who are you matchmaking on this?
Oh, 4 weeks from now, Dustin Jacoby and Azamat Murzakanov are fighting. Give him one of those guys.
I could see that. That's actually one of the ones I was looking at. I went with a little lower on the list, but I'm at the point where I'm going to use Span to try to see where somebody else is. And this guy's looked really good lately. I'm giving him Carlos Oberg.
That was
He's
another
hot.
one on my list.
He's hot, and it's also, I wouldn't give his talent. I wouldn't give this kind of test, but it's his talent with the camp that he's in. That camp tends to like be able to push guys early on in their career and show that they're like ahead of the pack. They can handle that early push.
Talk about city kickboxing for Oberg.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it with them.
Yeah.
Be able to really find talent and just really blossom it.
And I like that, because if he's developing, then Span is the kind of test he should be able to get past. If he's not developing, Span's going to guillotine him in 2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, as good a kickboxer as Oberg is, like, it'll end up with Span getting like a guillotine. So yeah.
Let's move on. One of the really fun fights. One of the fights that was very controversial in the scoring. I don't want to say very controversial, but very debated, I should say. Is said Nurmagomedov took on Jonathan Martinez, with Jonathan Martinez winning a decision. I'm just going to. How did you score that fight?
I scored it 29-28 for Nurmagomedov. I gave him the first and third rounds, but I thought the third round was really close.
Yep.
So I'm not pulling out the R word here. No robbery in my mind. If anything, if a fight is that close, I just kind of expect the guy named Nurmagomedov to pull it out.
Yeah.
Like, they just don't tend to lose close decisions. No.
I also had it exactly the same way. I had it 29-28. I gave him the same exact rounds, with the third round being the debated one. It came down to me. It really just came down to positioning, because that's what really happened, where neither guy did that much damage. Nurmagomedov had Martinez pinned against the cage. I mean, he's been pinned down on the ground for a long time. Martinez had him pinned against the cage. Like, it was one of those ones, like, super close fight, no debate. From striking range, it's funny. I knew I leaned Nurmagomedov there, but I was surprised how clearly above Martinez he was in the striking. Like, he had a lot of variety. Martinez couldn't adjust to him because of all the different types of attacks, the constantly changing of stances. So he doesn't because Martinez is a very traditional stand in front of you, Muay Thai, find the legs, kick the legs. And he's like, okay, now he switches stance. He switches stance again. Now he throws a spinning back fist on me. So I think Martinez was very surprised by that. So that's why he was struggling. I like the adjustment he made. He's like, okay, even though this guy's a better wrestler, he had him positions where he was, squeezing him. Looked like Nurmagomedov almost submitted him first in the first round. Like, it was close to getting a submission in the first round, throwing those spinning kicks, the question marks, like that, drained your battery. And while I think Nurmagomedov was better than him, like a full gas tank, Nurmagomedov's better than him. Like a half a tank one, because he didn't completely gas out or anything like that. That was just enough for now the takedowns weren't going to work for him.
Right.
And now Martinez is the one actually winning the, in close clinching battles, kicking the knees, wearing on him. Dangerous game to play against Nurmagomedov, but it worked.
Yeah. I mean, regardless of whether you thought the decision was justified or not, one of the better performances of Jonathan Martinez's UFC run so far.
Yeah. It's a really quiet one, but he's on this run. He called somebody. I can't remember who he called out. Oh, he called out Dominic Cruz, and he called out Davison Figueiredo. Do you like any of those matchups, or would you go somewhere else?
I think Cruz's name value is way too high, and I don't think he's earned a Davison Figueiredo fight.
Okay.
Like if Deiveson Figueiredo moves up to 135, his first fight is going to be against a top 10 fighter, and if he wins that, his second fight is going to like be, well, the title picture's crowded.
Yeah, title's real crowded.
I mean, I do think he deserves a guy that'll be ranked ahead of him. Like I just talked about Jan maybe getting the loser of Simone versus Song, maybe give Martinez a winner of that one, or maybe the winner of Chris Gutierrez versus Pedro Munoz.
Yeah, I actually went with the Figueiredo fight. Like, I'm okay with that matchup more because of how crowded the division is. This besides crowded like challenges, but there's also crowded like personalities. Like, you have a lot of personalities in that. Sterling, Cejudo, Merab, O'Malley.
Not Martinez.
Like, Martinez isn't the one.
No.
Which is why I stayed away from Cruz, because I hate when Dominic Cruz gets wasted on a guy who doesn't really have the personality. Dominic Cruz is gonna try to talk shit, and that guy's not gonna talk shit back. And it's like when he fought Casey Kenny, and like Casey Kenny's a good fighter, but like he's not gonna like you're wasting the marketability of Dominic Cruz, who doesn't get to he doesn't get to fight that often. Two, his window of fighting is like extremely cool. I mean, he's pretty much half retired as it is as already. You know, like I think he's even come to the realization he's not gonna be a title challenger. He's not going to win a title anytime soon. Yeah. So I want Figueiredo because Figueiredo, while he's former champion, I think that is done. The flyweight experiment is done. The the rivalry with Moreno, but he's also he has that like bad boy guy. But we've talked about this, and I hate like being a broken record, but the lack of speaking English always makes you less marketable. You need at least that limited English. The Anderson Silva didn't speak English, but he would speak a little bit enough to get at least say something to Chael Sonnen.
Yeah,
Clever. Say something to Vito Belfort. Clever.
Oh, it made the few things he said into instant memes. It's the same thing as Khabib. Khabib is not a fluent English speaker, but everything he says just has this layer of unintentional comedy to it, like number one bullshit. Like kind of, like Anderson's like, he's normal,
I think Yoel Romero. Think about how like,
oh God. I love you.
Speak English, but you don't know anything he's saying. But
no forget Jesus.
Yeah, then he'd say something like that, and it was like fantastic, and everyone loved him. So,
he was trying to say, "Don't forget Jesus," but his accent is so bad, everyone thought he was saying something about gay Jesus. I'm like, just. I don't want to tell this guy to shut up because everything that comes out of his mouth is gold. Yeah,
he's fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's what I went with. Nurmagomedov, I gotta drop him down because again the division is so tough and he has a couple losses. I'm gonna go with the guy who fought in this card. I think it'd just be a fun stylistic matchup. I'd go with Victor Henry.
That's exactly what I wrote down. I want to turn my other monitor around and just show you my note.
There you go.
Yes,
I just think it'd be so much fun. Their style, Henry pressing the action with the team kicks, Nurmagomedov with his wrestling and his kicks. I think it'd just be a really fun fight. Probably matchmaking wise, the most surprising match in I think everybody on the planet, other than Guido Canetti, got it. Mario Batista versus Guido Canetti. Mario Batista won by first round submission. I think everybody going into this fight was like, "Wow, this is a like stylistic nightmare for Guido Canetti. This is like Mario Batista should already be fighting better guys." Batista just ran right through him. He looks good technically on the feet, definitely on the ground, which is like, where did this come from? Like, he was always like, okay on the ground. Now he's like, he looks like freaking Charles Oliveira on the ground. He suplexed him at one point. But I think it's really.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The suplex ended the fight, dude. Like, Canetti is as game as they come. Like, he's one of those guys that I'm like, he's not the most talented. He's not the most athletic. He's 40 some years old, but he's one of those guys that you're going to have to kill him to get him out of there. But the look in his eyes after Batista just slammed him kind of on his neck and shoulder, that fight was over in the next 30 seconds, no matter what. Like, the next thing that Batista did was going to end that fight.
When you listen to like a morning show, riding in your car, and this is the, Dave and Jeff morning show, hot something, they'll have like little sound effects and stuff. We should get those, by the way. But anytime someone hits a suplex, like on the UFC broadcast, as soon as suplex goes, like they should hit a button. It should be Jeff Black just screaming like suplex,
or Jeff Black going, "That's not a suplex." Just get both of them because
yeah. It's like not that good of one. Yeah. The thing that stands out with Bautista, he just has so much confidence right now. He's got this swagger for a guy who's like very similar to Martinez, where they're kind of quiet. He's even worse than Martinez. Maybe. Oh, I don't know. That's pretty close. But kind of quiet. He's fighting with confidence. He's
No, dude,
um,
he's so quiet that you could have started watching the UFC 2 years ago and not be sure Mario Bautista was American. You might have thought he was from Mexico and like barely spoke English.
yeah, that's fair. That's a good point. He called for Cody Garbrandt in. Yeah, I'm gonna give it to him. He's gonna absolutely starch Garbrandt, but I feel like Garbrandt is so washed that you can't even use his name to get anybody over at this point. Where it's not like I think everybody knows he's washed. That this guy keeps calling he's calling for Cody Garbrandt, and 135 is so loaded. It is one of those ones like. Okay, the one thing Batista doesn't have is a name. He's beating guys, but didn't have that name. Give me Garbrandt.
Okay, I don't hate it as a name thing because competitively he's earned better than that. He's won 4 in a row, and some of them have not been the highest level competition, like Jay Perrin, Guido Canetti. But Brian Kelleher has a pretty good win, and Bautista ran him over. Like I had on my card, just give him Davey Grant, who won the night as well.
Ooh,
but
interesting.
But Garbrandt, that would give him like a little something for the resume, so I'm fine with either.
Juice X asked a good question. If any bantamweight, and there was a bunch of them, any bantamweight winners tonight had fought Merab, would they have fared better than Jan? I don't. Who would have?
Maybe Bautista would have. I think would have made it interesting.
I don't.
You don't think?
I think everybody got involved.
I mean, none of them are gonna make it close. I don't.
I was thinking about Martinez, because like he's so different than Jan, where he does throw knees, he throws kicks. That's more of his game. I just don't know if he'll be able to stop the takedowns as like Jan. I don't know. I just think.
I mean, Victor Henry would at least be super active. I mean, he'd get taken down a lot, but he has an active and tricky submission game. He'd be constantly trying to sweep, throw up offense. I mean, he might at least make rounds close, or Merab couldn't make a mistake.
Who might have had the best chance of beating Merab? No, I don't think any of them has a good chance at all. Just for the record. But tonight, I'm actually going to go with the guy in a loss. It might be Tony Gravely, because you know what? Gravely has power in his hands. Maybe he connects with a big shot. Gets a Hail Mary. And I guess David Grant too. David Grant has that. I mean, David Grant's so bad wrestling, like defensive wrestling. But
he got that real British old school wrestling.
Maybe it's a Sunsao, because Sunsao has that ability just to get people to not do anything. Like that'd be pretty impressive. He got Merab to like slow down and just stare at him and not do much. Yeah, I think Juice X was setting us up just to say no, absolutely not. Nobody would have done good.
J-Sex, the answer is Honey Barcelos.
That's good. Always Honey Barcelos.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, you went with David Grant, right? And that's a fun matchup. Okay, I'm gonna put the next 2 fights together.
Okay.
As we had kind of 4 newcomers, kind of ish, as Vitor Petrino was making his UFC debut, taking on Anton Turkalj. All right, I was way off. Sorry about that. He is his second fight in the UFC, taking, and then the fight before that was Lucas Brzezinski, who was in the second fight in the UFC, taking on Carl Williams, making his UFC debut. I'm putting these together because I feel like it was similar fights, and not like how it went, but it was really fun, ugly, low level MMA. But I loved every minute of both fights.
Oh man, I tweeted about the Petrino versus Turkalj fight. Anton Turkalj could play Alexander Gustafsson in a biopic as long as they got someone else to do the fight scenes.
Yeah, he couldn't do it. Yeah. Who would the actor be that played John Jones?
Oh man, that's a good question. Maybe like make Michael B. Jordan slim down a little bit. He's too jacked now.
Yeah, he's too short though. I mean, he's not short, but
Yeah, but I've been watching that that Showtime series like about Magic Johnson with the Lakers. They've got a 6'3" dude playing Magic, and they just really carefully with angles make him taller than everybody. Even though
okay,
Magic's like 6'9". Yeah, they can make it happen.
okay. Did they make Magic real fat though?
Well, I'm still at the beginning where he's like the skinny kid just out of Michigan State.
Oh,
So
okay. What's that? Showtime?
yeah, it's like called it's Showtime or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually that'd actually be pretty good. I probably should watch that. Did you finish The Wire yet?
We finished The Wire. There's a lot of seasons of it. I'm plowing through season 1.
First of all, why you wait? Why are you watching other TV shows if you haven't finished The Wire? In fact, why are you watching UFC if you haven't finished The Wire?
Why am I doing this recap? I'm just gonna put The Wire on my other monitor and
let's play The Wire.
Like, oh shit.
Please, guys, don't put in the chat any spoilers for Ben.
Yeah, don't spoil it. It's a 20-year-old show, but don't spoil it for
me. So yeah, the fights were terrible, like sloppy, and guys were gassed, but I loved it. yeah, they definitely belong on the LFA card. But Ben, you wrestled.
Yes.
When you're like, you've had that JV match before, like this JV's wrestling your team.
Oh yeah.
Then you have like this great JV matchup where it's not great. Like the technique is terrible, and two freshmen are wrestling or something, but the score is like 22-23 because this stuff falling all over the place. But then then the JV match goes to overtime, and then everyone's excited. And everyone's like, we weren't paying attention to start, but now we're all cheering for the JVs. Yeah. And then like someone gets it. That's how I felt like in these matchups. I love these.
No, I'm fine with it too, especially because this was a free card. Like if this was stuff even on the undercard of a pay-per-view, I'd be like, what are you doing? But no, at least they were a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you guys in the chat, tell me how I'm like really stupid for enjoying. Like I enjoyed it, and it's so funny because a lot of people were tweeting at me saying like when I said I enjoyed it, like, dude, I knew you'd enjoy something like that.
Well, like those JV matches will often have somebody that they got some kid that's been wrestling for like 2 months and he doesn't really know how to wrestle, but just the stuff he keeps trying works for some reason because the other guy's not great either. That was these fights.
Yeah, like the guy's reaching back, like trying to headlock from behind, and one guy's like goes for the half, but he doesn't know how to like settle himself, so he goes too far. Then the guy rolls through in reverse, and he's on his back, but then he like steps over a leg and he gets reversed, and that's what was going on. I'll say this about so even though I say this is very low level and they definitely need a lot of polish, I actually think Petrino and Carl Williams are going to be pretty successful in the UFC.
I expected Petrino, had, some upside. I was pleasantly surprised by Williams. I'll say that much.
Okay. So Petrino, to me, like he's got really good striking. He lands. I mean, he was hurting Takali plenty of times. He needs to improve his cardio, but we've seen a lot of guys like that. They just slow things down. You think like a Michelle Beher, they kind of get a little more selective, don't throw power on every single strike. And while his grappling was really sloppy, especially his takedown defense late, what I do like about him, 2 fights in a row, he's been in bad positions in grappling situations, and even when he was tired, he didn't panic. He found ways to, like, he knows how to get out of things. So I like that. And let's not mention that Takali grabbed the fence a couple times too. And it was Mark Smith again.
It was a night for grabbing the fence. And these gyms, I mean, you've spent some time in gyms. I've spent plenty of time in gyms. The scouting reports are out there on the refs. Like fighters know which refs will let you get away with 3 fence grabs.
Yeah.
Fighters know which referees will just grow a wild hair and take a point for the first time somebody pokes an eye.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like Keith Peterson is a guy, like he does a lot of New England fights, and he has a reputation of he doesn't stand guys back up. If you're a wrestler and you're on top, he's going to let you stay there. If you're in the clinch, he's going to let you stay in there with an underhook.
That's when he goes and gets a beer and a cigarette.
That's right. Yeah, well, he's in New England, hanging out. So you said something. You said that you've been around MMA gyms. I've been around MMA gyms. Do you think either one of us has been around an MMA gym more recently than Alexander Romanov?
Yes, I think it's entirely. I feel bad because I wonder if he really just is like depressed after losing his first fight, his last time out, and he's never going to be the same again. And hey, that would be sad. That's happened to better fighters than him. Look at Ronda Rousey, you know. But yeah,
Did you just say better? Did you just say Ronda Rousey is better
than Alexander Romanov? Yeah.
Okay. Can we side talk for a second? Because I mean, the rest
Absolutely.
of the stuff are prelims. So one thing we do at Sherdog, we're doing this top 10 voting for different categories. They come out once a week. Lev is the one who's leading that. Does a really good job. We all vote, and then Lev kind of does like a commentary. It's more like a op-ed of our results, and they want them. They rank them all together.
And if he disagrees, you'll know about it.
Oh, yeah. we love Lev. Lev is a multi-time guest of the Shillan and Duffy show, especially on the previous shows. Yeah. I still don't know what he looks like though.
He's this 6'5" Russian dude with a really bad webcam. Yeah.
I'll say this. You talk about Ronda Rousey. We're voting on top 10 grapplers, which is such like, oh my god, like it's such a big field to pick 10. I'm gonna get his shit on. I picked Ronda Rousey number 1. I put a number 1 grappler in MMA history, and I'll tell you why. I kind of alluded to it. And the guy I didn't put in my top 10 at all might be number 1, number 2 on our rankings when they come out, but I'll get to that in a second. So I'm being controversial a second. Number 1, the reason why Ronda Rousey I put number 1 is because she's the only person I know that she was so feared on the ground, and then when it hit the ground, she finished the fight in seconds. Like championship fight, Kat Zingano, 15 seconds. Alexis Davis thrown on your head, gone. Like that's what she did.
Yep. And
she had a finishing move. Like it felt like a finishing move, you know?
She did and could set it up from just about anywhere. Very popular finisher for people who come from judo. But no, I mean I had her in my top 5, and the only thing that kept me from going higher was that like it was relatively brief. You know, she lost 2 fights and she bailed. If she stuck around and done that to a few more top 10 people, she would have been even higher on my list. I'm not mad about that being number 1.
All right, so here's the one that I did not put in my top 10, and I give you my thinking because I used to write a big long thing about everyone. Then I'm like, wow, I'm the only person given this huge like analysis. Why my top 10? So I'm like, nah, I just break top 10 guys. Here you go. But I did not put George St. Pierre in my top 10, and I'll tell you why. I was having skill wise, he's obviously there, but I was having a hard time where to put George St. Pierre in my top 10 because his wrestling, you take everybody down, this and that. Then I just think, like, was George St. Pierre a grappler or was he a striker? And I know that's obviously both, but and I was like, well, he won like half of his fights with striking. Like, he didn't need to grapple. And that's why I kind of left on the list. Where the other guys, or even when he first burst on the scene, it wasn't like Charles Oliveira where he was a grappler who added striking.
No,
so that's why I didn't make my list.
I agree. I mean, in his prime, like he used his wrestling in reverse to keep things standing, jabbed, Superman punched people, got a takedown late in the round, did not try to advance position, did not try to submit the guy. I mean, he was an incredibly skilled grappler and he was unstoppable, but he just didn't grapple. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to give away anybody's ruin the rankings, but I'm assuming George St. Pierre. Another guy that got a lot of votes, and this is my last one, we'll move on. Royce Gracie got a shitload of votes. You know how I feel. I wouldn't put Royce Gracie in my top. If Lev said, "Give me your top 100 grapplers," I wouldn't put Royce Gracie in my top 100 because he's submitting. It took him like 30 minutes to submit Dan Seven's first time ever fighting MMA. Never knew anything about jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
So I mean, again, I understand that Dan Seven was like 100 pounds bigger than him, but still. But that said, I understand the logic of those who are voting for Royce Gracie. Mm-hmm. It's. Yeah, well, he was the ultimate guy. He started jiu-jitsu and MMA and submitted, whatever, how many guys. Like, I understand it. I can't put him over Shinya Aoki. I can't do that.
No.
So, anyways, so kind of what I said about Petrino, going back to this nonsense. Carl Williams, I like Carl Williams. I think he's explosive. I think I love his style. I love that he can wrestle. He's little for the weight class, but he's a good athlete. He showed he can wrestle, and we've talked about this in the past. And I know you kind of agreed with me the last time I said it. wrestling at heavyweight, you can go very far.
Yes.
Anything else you want to say about this fight?
Nope.
Right.
Like.
Yeah, I already talked enough. I talked enough with a little side for grappling. So that was part 2 of the really bad MMA. Before that, a fight that I thought should have been much higher in the card. Not based on where they stand right now or anything, but you kind of had to know that Rafael Sunsao was nearing the end, that he could retire at any time. He's been around forever. Rafael Sunsao took on Davy Grant. Davy Grant won by 3rd round inverted triangle choke submission where Sunsao went completely out. Let's put this controversial thing we'll talk about. Let's put that on the side for a second. What do you think of a Sunsao's performance before, or even including getting submitted?
I thought he looked great, and I said on the preview, it's like, I'm not going to say he's fighting the best he ever has, but he's fighting the same he ever has. And Jay Petri doing, in between doing the text play-by-play, said, like, I think at the end of the 2nd round, Sunsao could do this for another 10 fights, couldn't he? Like something along those lines, could just roll out this game plan and beat like top 20 guys, just keep doing it forever.
Yeah.
Until he didn't. Like, he looked fine. He's the bantamweight Andrei Arlovsky. Like, he manages to slow people down to his pace, avoids most damage, gets enough offense in to win rounds. It's just wild until it didn't work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, he has this unbelievable, like, he hypnotizes guys. Even Davy Grant was a guy I'm like, all right, he's not going to fall for like slow down pace, and he did. And I really felt like Davy Grant was fighting exactly how Sunsao wanted him to fight. Like, slow output, not for 2.5 rounds, slow output, and throwing looping hooks. So long looping hooks that Sunsao could time, take him down, turn into a grappling match. Then he picked up the pace. He hurt Rafael Sunsao. Eventually, he gets an inverted triangle. It was really sick. Sunsao overall, he announced he retired after this fight. 10 years from now, someone mentions Rafael Sunsao. I don't think he's going to get brought up in MMA a lot, but 10 years now when he gets brought up, what do you think about the
guy? Same thing I said on the preview. Maybe the most anonymous, unsung, longtime top contender in UFC history. I mean, the guy has been a top 10 bantamweight for like a decade, and outside of like hardcore fans that watched a lot of fight nights, like, nobody's gonna remember him.
Yeah, that's how I kind of think of it. Guy who I think RC Kim kind of summed it up. Like, he got stuck on the prelims in his retirement fight, and again, they might not know he's gonna retire or not, but yeah, that kind of sums him up. Like, great fighter who's always been good but never got any respect. Nobody wanted him to be the champ. He fought a way that could. I mean, if he ever won the championship, he would have been who would have been harder to market than Rafael Sunsao? And he was there. Like, he could have, if he got a matchup and things broke right, like, he could have won. He might have been the best 135 pounder. He was in that conversation. Like, who would have been harder to market than a prime Rafael Sunsao? Tim Sylvia? I don't know.
I mean, they tried with Sylvia, and
yeah,
one of the very hardest. Dev makes a good point here. He's another guy where the guy had like 25 fights in the UFC, and you might not ever know he spoke English because sometimes he wouldn't get a post-fight interview because he's on crowded prelims. Yeah,
and his fight usually went 15 minutes, and it was boring, and you kind of bored out, and all right, we lost time because they just went through a decision, so now we gotta rush the next fight out. Yeah. And like, he would do the pre-press. Sometimes he wouldn't even be on the pre-press conferences, like when they do the media days. They wouldn't put him on there, even though he was ranked 5th in the world, or if he did, he never said anything important. That he'd say something like, work hard, believe in jiu-jitsu, he'd never. So like, you wouldn't listen to that. It would have you'd go, the Sherdog's YouTube page and have like, the big guy who's like half as accomplished as him, but says something wild, so that's got 30,000 views, and then that his interview has 30 views.
Like Cody Durden got like 3 fights in the UFC, went 1-2,
Absolutely.
said one wild thing about China, and he is far better known than Rafael Assunção.
Yeah. I'll say just like I'll think of him as always like very technically did everything good, like not great, but just always technically sound. Got a really good resume when you look at the guys he beat. One of these is one of those guys when you talk about fighters and you're like, dude, check out this guy's resume. And you're like, damn, like Jake Shields, like, damn, Jake Shields beat that guy. Damn, Jake Shields beat that guy.
Yep.
And like Yoel Romero's one of those, damn, Yoel Romero, look at this resume. I feel like Assunção will be one of those guys where you'll go look up this guy's and you're like, damn, he's got a lot of good wins.
In a row, TJ Dillashaw, Pedro Munoz, Brian Caraway, lost to Dillashaw in the rematch, Aljamain Sterling, Marlon Moraes, Matthew Lopez, Rob Font. That's a ridiculous run.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. I'll say this, we'll get to the controversial part, and not necessarily what happened in this fight, but just my take on MMA overall is, so we had a really, I think, controversial situation where there was, I don't know, maybe about a minute left in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
David Grant did hurt Rafael Assunção. He had him hurt. He was going in for the kill. Assunção did what he does, hung on, grabbed the leg, had a little scramble going. He was kind of like lifting him up. Grant's kind of coming out the back. It's kind of like this weird scramble thing, but Grant grabs the fence, which helps him in that brief moment not like lose getting taken down. And Keith Peterson did one thing great and one thing terrible. I love that he stopped the fight and goes, nope, that completely helped Davey Grant. Here's a point. What I hate is he goes, okay, Davey Grant is hurt this guy on the feet, doesn't want to grapple with him, use the fence to not get taken down, because if Assunção finishes that takedown, fight's probably over. He wins. He wins his retirement fight. Or maybe he doesn't retire. Maybe he keeps going. Who knows? Maybe he goes, hey, I'm on a little run. Maybe I can, who knows? But instead he goes, oh, okay, let's start standing again. But, and then his argument is, him grabbing the fence helped him get top position. So rewind it. Go back to, okay, Assunção has a leg here before you grab the fence. All right, ready? We're going to start here. Go. It was terrible. And honestly, I got into a Frank Trigg, which is really weird. Frank Trigg started talking shit to me. Well, it was on Bellator, and I took the high road. He said something like, I think someone who covered MMA should know the rules. I almost responded, but I didn't because I'm a classy guy. That's one thing they say about me is
you keep it classy.
Top of class. Yeah. I didn't say, the guy who's most famous for kicking the dude in the nuts. I didn't say that. I didn't say I went classy. And I said, well, just educate us then. Like, I tried being civil. Yeah. I just hate that. I hate that we don't know the rules. Like, I hate that. I watch more MMA than Frank Trigg does. I guarantee that. If we're talking about me and you, we're in the 1%ers. All the guys in the chat, we're in the 1%ers. Juice X is probably watching fights right now in freaking South Korea, like right now. And a lot of guys in our chat are doing the same shit. That's what they do. That's what we do. This is what we do. But like, it's mind-boggling. Like, what happened at Bellator? What happened today? What happened? Like, we know and I know NFL can have some tricky rules, and the Super Bowl how it ended, but generally speaking, it's kind of easy to follow the rules. I hate that MMA is not like that. And I understand we're a newer sport. We've only been around 30 years, but Jesus Christ. Can we get first of all, can we get unified rules? Like actual unified, not the name unified rules, but like every state follows these rules. Like you don't go, Rick Allen, nice job, buddy. You don't go to Massachusetts in football and they have these rules. And then you go to Rhode Island and they have these rules, and you go to Texas, Texas a touchdown is 7 points, but in Rhode Island a touchdown is 10 points. And
the amount of air you put in the ball in Massachusetts is different.
Shut up.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, see, Juice X is actually watching fights in Japan right now. Of course he is. That's so. I just hate that. I just hate that there's always confusion and there's no one knows, and and I don't know. Good. What'd you think about that? I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I think Rafael Santos got screwed. Now maybe David Grant still would have finished him. Who knows? But
and the one suggestion that Jay's had, and he as well as I attended the Association of Boxing Commission's training, is the ref can take a point without stopping the action. Just hold it, finger up to the judges, 1 point from blue. But the problem is, if he does that, well, then how does the fight end? You
know what? If he takes a point there, and David Grant's on top of us, that's still a better position than it was if they stood him up.
Yeah, because losing another, like, hell, Grant's like, you can take 5 points from me because I got to finish this fight.
You got to finish
no matter what. Yeah,
exactly. That's a good point too. It doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Fine. I'd rather. Yeah. He would have better off climbing up like freaking Spider-Man up the cage. Like, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that fence grabs need to be called more strictly. Like, of all the fouls, they need to be called more strictly, like more so than eye pokes, more than nut shots. And I'm also of the opinion that referees should halt the action and interpose themselves in the action, as little as possible while still enforcing the rules. So.
And I'll say this. I really try not to bash referees too much on the show because they're humans and it's extreme. I don't think I could do it.
Nobody praises them when they get it right.
They never do. Yeah. That's true. That's a good point. And like, even though Frank Trigg was trying to talk shit, like, I didn't lose to Matt Hughes. All right. So
twice.
Yeah. Like, he does a good job. A lot of the guys, like, I think Jason Herzog is as good as the referee there is. Yep. But I think it's extremely tough. It's very hard. It's very confusing. It's also weird. Like, things happen so weird in MMA than other sports. It seems like, like boxing's much easier. Boxing's way easier to ref compared to MMA. Like, not even close. So, so what I would have done, I would have taken the point. I would have stopped the position. I would have put him back in the position before he grabbed the fence, and I would have started it whatever time was left. That's not what happened. I think Rafael Santos got screwed. Anyways, so that was kind of a low point. Good point, as someone mentioned. I apologize. I butchered this guy's first name. Cedric Dumas.
Luckily, you hopefully won't have to say it too many more times.
Yeah, took on Josh Frem. We'll talk about the action for a second. What do you think about it? I think it was a pretty fun fight.
It was a fun fight. I picked Cedric Dumas to win this fight. I picked him to knock out Fremd in the first round. Turns out that was me underestimating Fremd. Just, he is a little better than I thought, and overestimating Dumas because I saw a kickboxer with pretty fast hands, pretty fast kicks, and lots of power. But in this fight, he was just sort of reduced to looking for one-shot head kick knockouts. Like, that's all he really offered, was trying to sneak up on Fremd with a big head kick. And Fremd was like, well, I'm just going to box you while you wait. And
that's, I'm glad that's, it was really was like, he was just looking, it seemed like he was looking for that like spectacular walk off Mark Hunt left hook face plant kind of thing. And Fremd was probably could take more damage in. Fremd was the one who landed the best shot. And then when Fremd hurt him, I don't think he really recovered. Not recovered in the sense of hurt, but more of the sense of,
I don't want to be here.
Yeah, like, oh shit.
This isn't a 100-pound woman that I'm hitting with the butt of a pistol.
Dude, we know each other so well. You literally stole the joke out of my mouth.
Sorry. Just real quick shout out. I see John Butterfield showed up. John Butterfield runs Ironclad Global. He is a great dude plugged into kind of like the Middle Eastern like MMA scene, which is actually kind of exploding, like places like obviously United Arab Emirates and Bahrain and stuff, but Egypt and Jordan. So what up, John? Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us, brother. Appreciate you. So I feel like it was more of like this, a little bit of that, like deer in the headlights, like, oh shit, I'm in the UFC. This isn't going how I expected it. And he started gassing quick. Fremd's a big dude. When Fremd's get on top of him, you start like having a big middleweight. He's a little bit more polished. Came up on a better regional scene than Dumas did, and then he got that sub. It didn't even look like it was in the. Like he he tapped quick. Like I think
he wanted out, dude.
He wanted out. Yeah. So one thing we don't do here, like we'll root for our picks, and we usually don't say anything, and it's still not personal. But I wrote an article this week. About Dumais,
and I linked it up thread, by the way. Like if you're wondering about it, it's in there.
And I never write, so and I'm not gonna do it. I forgot how much I enjoy doing this more than that. I do write enough of my other job, but he's just not a good person. And if he had a criminal, he has a very long criminal history. He's been accused of something he's been arrested for. So I think we were, and I can't take all credit. We had a lot of editing, a lot of adding from other guys. Really, I don't want a lot of them. They edit. They don't want their names out there, but they're legends in the world of MMA writing. I'm all for people to get second chances. I really am. I believe that's I think that's where we are as people. Like we're all human beings who make mistakes, and I do not like not to get controversial, but I do not like the cancel culture where they bring up something you did 10 years ago, and I don't like that. But fine, show me that you're changing. I hate the narrative that the UFC was trying to push that, this guy, because it's, it's been covered about his criminal history, and it was, this guy had criminal history, but MMA has like saved his life. And no, don't, that's cool, but don't show me him getting arrested 6 times since he started MMA. Don't show me he got arrested after he signed with the UFC.
That's the unfortunate part to me. And I'm with you. I believe not just in second chances, but like in specifically the redemptive power of sports. Like one of my favorite boxers of all time is Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins literally learned to box while in prison for armed robbery. He got out of prison, he became a great boxer, and he never got in serious trouble with the law again. That's a whole different thing than getting signed to the UFC while you still have multiple open cases, or like being like Greg Hardy and, like only being free because just like on essentially a legal technicality and paying off the victim. Like that's not the same.
Yeah. And I still hope he changes. I hope he never gets arrested again. Obviously, I mean, I hope everybody changes, and I hope he learns his lesson. And I've seen this many times, and we've all seen this many times. I don't think he's going down the right path. I think it's not going to work out good for him. And I think he should get one more fight in the UFC. And
against Bo Nickel.
Against Bo fucking Nickel. That's, you know me too well. I was setting up. This is the middleweight that should be. I'm dead serious. I'd put Bo Nickel against him. Good versus evil.
I like it.
Bo, and I'll joke aside, that actually should be the kind of guy Bo should fight next.
Yeah, a guy that's 0-1 in the UFC. Absolutely. That's 0-1 in the UFC, but could knock him out if he's stupid. Yeah.
Could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, like they make that fight. Bo Nickel is officially a Texan again.
I thought I was going to sneak that one in too. I thought I was going to sneak that one in as like a good one. All right, let's move on. Before that, Tony Gravely took on Victor Henry. Victor Henry won by split decision. I think this was the best fight of the night.
All I know is
competitive, and
I still do not know who the hell Victor Henry is.
Yeah. And I think the good I thought it was a great strap. Before, how did you score the fight? Because this one, when I looked at Twitter, and this usually doesn't happen, I didn't see anybody saying robbery, this, that, robbery. I didn't see that, but I saw like 29-28 Gravely, 29-28 Henry, 29-28 Gravely, 29-28 Henry. Like it was like, I was like just looking at him, and I was like, I didn't go to MMA decision or anything like that, but it seemed very even. Like
MMA decisions is dead, man. Like I think it's been dead for a week or two.
What? No, they were posting today.
MMA decisions? Go to the site.
They what?
Go to MMAdecisions.com. I'm pretty sure the site is dead.
Really?
Like, he might have been tweeting, but his website's dead.
Oh.
Anyway, I scored it 29-28 Henry.
It's dead. Like it's not running anymore.
Yeah, like it just goes to an error screen, like a 404 error. Like the actual website is dead.
That was a fantastic website.
It was fantastic.
Which means go to Sherdog.com to see how all the media members hit.
Wow. It means the mongoose. Marcus Mustard. La mangosta means the mongoose in Spanish. You know, like the little weasel thing that kills poisonous snakes. Yeah, that's la mangosta.
Oh, wasn't the bike?
Yeah. No. But no, I scored it 2-1 for Henry. But honestly, all 3 rounds were really competitive, especially the first and the third. So anything short of 30-27 Gravely, I was fine with. Like,
Okay.
the Sherdog scores gave all 3 rounds to Henry. I wasn't mad at that. I only gave him 2. But yeah. Like, I
So
thought the second round was pretty clearly a Henry round.
so Ben, you're sharing fake news because I knew he was tweeting like this is the media scores on from again. I went to MMA Decisions Twitter.
Uh-huh.
I clicked on like this says media scores of this fight, and I click on it, and then it brings me to the website MMADecisions.com.
That's so weird. Why is it not coming up for me?
I'm doing it from my mobile phone. I don't know. I'm not a techie person. I don't know if that has anything to do.
I'll look it up later. Yeah. Yeah, like I'll see what's going on. Like maybe I just need to clear my cache. Anyway,
Yeah, too much porn, Ben.
that could be the problem.
I'm sorry. I was too busy. I was being so rude. So who did you score the fight for?
I scored it for Henry.
Okay.
I gave Henry the first and second rounds. I gave Gravely the third round. But
Okay.
again, I thought the second round was pretty clearly a Henry round.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
But any score short of 30-27 Gravely, I'm fine with.
Yeah, to me, the first round was really close. The third round was really close. I gave the first round to Gravely. I gave the third round to Henry. I could completely be convinced the other way.
Yeah.
I could have been convinced the other way, either side.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could have given the first to Henry, and but I felt like this. I wrote this note down was Gravely might have won a 10-9 or 10-point must system scoring fight, MMA fight.
Yeah.
But if this is Pride rules, one championship rules, this is clearly a Victor Henry fight because of how dominant he was in the second.
Yeah.
Really great fight. I like Henry's like being a builder, working the cardio, putting a pace on Gravely. But one thing I liked about Gravely is that he seemed like he was done, but then he got a second wind. Which
when he looked tired, I was like, oh dude, he's toast. We might see a finish.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. What my favorite part, and of course this is me getting excited. At one point, right at the very end of the third round, Gravely was on top. He was sprawled out. He had like kind of like a modified front headlock, but he didn't have it. It was kind of more around the waist and everything. And he was sprawled out heavy. You know what I mean? But he sprawled out like over the top, like too overextended. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, You really want to sprawl your hips, shoulder area. You don't want to be more towards like the belt line or anything. And Victor Henry is not the NCAA wrestler. And he had a peek out. Did you see that? Right at the very end?
Yes. I mean,
I loved it. Loved it. That right there gave you I'm like, I was on the fence who I'm getting the third round. I'll hit that peek out. Give me Victor Henry.
He is a shockingly skilled fighter. Like he hasn't put it all together perfectly yet, but when he wants to be, he seems like one of the best strikers in the division. When he wants to, he seems like one of the best like wrestlers/grapplers in the division. He's a 35-year-old bantamweight, so I was mildly surprised when he made it to the UFC at all. And if anything's going to happen, it better happen pretty quick. But for as long as he's going to be around, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. And anything that gets more Josh Barnett on my TV is a win. So
yeah, yes, I'm glad you said that, Josh. I think he's so like, yes, I understand that he's a dirty fighter and he's done more steroids than like Lance Armstrong and like race horses and shit. I would say, we did a race horse story, but yeah, it's still he's just fun. Like Josh Barnett's fun.
Yes,
like Josh Barnett, if he's your neighbor, he's the guy like he's like the guy like you walk out, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning, he's in the backyard like already barbecuing. 4 beers deep, like, dude, what's up? You want a beer? Like, dude, it's like 9 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, come throw axes at this tree stump with me and play some loud ass metal. Yeah.
Yeah. I got fireworks. Like, what are you talking? You got fireworks. It's April, celebrate, that's Josh. I got a neighbor just like that, actually. Yeah. So that was really fun. Wrestling by Victor. Speaking of wrestling, the NCAA wrestling Division I wrestling tournament starts this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Unbelievable. I think it's one of the best seasons ever. We have two guys going for history, Spencer Lee and Yanni Diakomahalis. Both could be. There's only been 4 guys in history to become 4-time NCAA champions. This year, we have 2 guys going for that could happen. I've been kicking this around, Ben, and I'll throw it out. I'm going to give this 100% to the listeners. It's going to be hard for me to do. UFC 286 week is coming up, which is going to be super busy. But I've been thinking about doing a preview show for the NCAA tournament. Reach out to me if you think that's something that you would actually listen to. If I get enough people saying that they would listen to it, I'll probably drop something like that this week and do a preview.
If you want to do that, let's talk offline. But I'll even just come up and introduce like the people and just kind of give their records, how they did in their conference tournaments and how they got here.
Okay, cool. So if people reach out to us, it's good. UFC pay-per-view weeks is super busy, and sometimes I take on too much than I should have. But if there's something you guys actually would listen to, maybe we'll think about doing something. Because you guys know I love NCAA wrestling. I think it's the best week of the year. Not much work to get done Thursday and Friday from my desk. Before that, overall, I don't think it was too good of a night. This might have been the low point. Not low point like I care who won, but like, you still want to be right on your picks every once in a while. Ariana Lipsy took on JJ Aldridge. Dude, I thought JJ Aldridge was better than Ariana Lipsy everywhere, and it was complete opposite.
Yeah, and Lipsky, for one, she actually didn't get bullied and pushed around by Aldridge, but she was aggressive.
Yeah, and fast, accurate.
She looked a little bit like we thought she would when she came over from KSW.
I like the clinch game she had.
Yeah,
and she didn't just flop over on takedowns. She was fighting takedown attempts. I think some of that was JJ Aldridge. Like, I think I might have overrated her wrestling a little bit. She kept going to the hips, and she probably needed to cut the corner. She kept trying to drive through, and if you're going to drive through, you either got to be super explosive or go to like the back trip. And she wasn't doing that, and she didn't cut the corner, or you switch off to a single, lift a high crotch. I think
things that Montana De La Rosa was able to do to Lipsky, and
I thought, I don't know if this was a good showing for Lipsky, a terrible showing from Aldridge, maybe a little bit of both.
I'm that sucker. I'm gonna choose to believe in Ariane Lipsky again for another 6 months.
I know. That's she might have got us. Before that, Tyson Nam took on Bruno Silva. I'll say this before we actually talk about the fight. Flyweight division is starting to get really, really exciting. I mean, it's always been exciting, but it seems like it's getting deeper. And I think it's the deepest it's been in a long time. And Bruno Silva, he's on a 3-fight winning streak. He looked great.
Part of it, I don't want to take too much away because it was a great performance, but Tyson Nam is 39.
Yeah.
And maybe just that chin has betrayed him to the point that, he couldn't pull off what he used to, because he's a huge flyweight, one of the few guys in that division with like serious one-punch power. And he sort of survived by fighting at a pretty deliberate pace, waiting for his spots and being able to take a little bit of fire. And this time, Silva beat him soundly the first round and then hurt him bad the second and was over.
Yeah, I think Bruno did a really good job of moving so much. He was L-stepping, darting back and forth, side to side, and Nam won. We've talked about this. He has to fight at a slower pace because of his age, because of the way he fights. He throws big power shots. He's really a guy who depends on his power, knocking a guy out or start hurting a guy. I thought Silva did such a good job just getting him, then beating him to spots, kicking the legs, which kind of zaps his power. Then that beautiful front kick, that was wild. Obviously I didn't see it coming, but just was like, he was throwing everything outside, kick, and then he comes straight up the middle. It was brilliant.
Just like Anderson Silva and Vitor Belfort just snaps. Yeah.
And I think he's still thanking people. Like, he was thanking everybody.
Yeah, he was like the 55-year-old dude that wins an Oscar for best sound editing, and he's been coming to the Oscars for 30 years. He just pulls this list out of his tuxedo that's it's longer than Cedric Dumas's criminal record, and he's gonna name every single one of them.
Yeah, good for him.
Good for him. You ever notice?
Good.
Just like Nam, like along with the other flyweights that have like serious one-shot power, they all fight at a super slow pace. Like I'm thinking of like the holy trinity of like him, John Lineker, and John Dodson, and they were all wait for your.
I agree with Dotson. I don't know if I agree with Lineker.
Do you think Lineker was a little more?
I think he has pretty good output.
But he also missed weight a lot. So
yeah. Well, I mean, was he really a flyweight? I mean, speaking of John Lineker, perfect transition to guys missing weight. Jaron Gooden missed weight really bad. I think it was 7 pounds. He took on Carlston Harrison. I'll say this: he took the fight on 2 days. Like, was it 2 days notice? 3 days notice? It was really.
And that a week ago today, he probably weighed like 196. He's a huge dude.
And listen, I know it's extremely easy for me to sit behind my keyboard and say, "Don't take the fight if you can't make the weight." This is how he pays his bills. This is how he feeds his family. Like, I get it. If you need money, shit, you might have to take the fight. So I understand that.
Hey Keith, you can have $12,000 next Saturday or not. Which do you want?
Yeah, no, I know. I get it. I get that it's easy for me to do it. You know, I just also think, and I understand why you take the fight, but I also think that's stealing a fight for somebody else who could take that, who could have made weight.
Oh yeah,
because if they called Gooden and he said, "Yeah, man, I'm sorry, I can't make weight," they call the next guy. Maybe that guy could have, or asked like, "Hey, dude, I'm sorry about that. Can we do 175? Can we do 177?" You know?
No, I agree, and it does make me wonder. Like obviously we've talked and laughed about William Knight coming in for this fight with Maxime Grishin and his record-breaking weight miss, and he was like a little bitter about it because he's like, "Hey, I'm the one who came in to save the fight. Why are y'all mad at me?" I wonder if they tell Sean Shelby or McMahon, "Hey, I'll take the fight, but just know now that I'm probably not going to be able to make the weight."
Yeah, that might have very well be the case.
Yeah,
like they're like, "All right, yeah, don't tell your opponent, okay." And then, oh my God, how did he not make the weight?
Yeah.
Even give him his 20% on top back. I'll say that about Colin Harris. Good and gas, especially, it was really smart of him just to turn into a wrestling match.
Yeah.
Harris is a good wrestler. He was very smart to get it there. Once he got a takedown, like he struggled to get the takedown early in the first, but once he got it down, he just knew, okay, this is the avenue of victory. It's getting easier and easier every minute that goes down. He's having a really hard time getting up. And it was just save smart, get the win, get the extra 20% with your opponent, get your win bonus.
It's almost a lose-lose situation. You're fighting somebody who is coming in on short notice. Oh, and by the way, got cut from the UFC off of 4 straight losses.
Yeah,
he can help his stock, but all you can do is survive and escape.
Yeah, and you get the shit because you lost to a guy that was on the couch, wasn't expecting to fight. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, guys, we have covered all 13 fights. 1 fight got canceled: Austin Lingo versus Ricardo Ramos, because Ricardo Ramos was hanging out with Alexander Romanov, and
and homie from Cass Bell from Bellator that missed weight by like a whole weight class,
and they actually let that fight go on.
Yeah, he lost half his purse.
Yeah. They should have, yeah. Anyways, all right. Let's get to the fun stuff. Do we have the awards?
Yeah, we have the awards. We have a fight of the night and 2 performances of the night. Many of you in the chat probably already know what the bonuses are. I mean, the article's already up on Sherdog's front page. So let us know whom you would have given the prizes to.
Yeah, and we'll just say this real quick. Shame on you if you don't know. That means you're not on Sherdog website. So shame on you, because that's where you guys should. Anytime an article comes out, you should be refreshing as much as like Ben was trying to refresh MMA decisions.
Yeah.
So who would I give a fight? Do you agree with the picks, Ben? There's some good performances tonight.
Okay, I do not agree with the fight of the night. I'm fine with the performances of the night.
All right, so the fight of the night, they probably went something like main event, or they might have went with Nurmagomedov versus Martinez, or I'm gonna go way down to the prelims for fight of the night. I'm gonna give Victor Henry and Tony Gravely. Like, it was competitive, back and forth. We had an absolute war in the 3rd round. We had some good striking exchanges, some good power shots, good wrestling exchange. We had a peek out, which is nice, which I know my boy Luke Wilson liked that. That's the fight I would give. What fight would you have given it to, Ben?
I mean, that to me was the obvious one, but I wouldn't have been super mad at the main event because, I mean, it was like pretty fun for, for 5 full rounds. I don't even know if the one that won would be my number 3.
Okay. What was the one that won?
Vitor Petrino versus Anton Turkalj. It wasn't even the best LFA fight in the middle of the card.
You know why I think they went with it? Because it was competitive. It was like down to the last second.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I don't know if I would put it in my. I don't know I'm not ranking the fights, but I think I'd like right now. I'd rather watch Gravely versus Henry again.
Yeah, and even of those kind of messy fights in the middle of the card, I thought Williams versus Brzezinski was at least as much fun, but it wasn't as close.
Yeah. You know, one thing I also say, if I'm on the fence and on the UFC, like, oh, this could get fighting, that could get fighting, and I go, wait a minute, wasn't Gravely and Henry a split decision, and a lot of people gave it to Gravely?
Yeah,
like, let's at least make it a little better for him. Hey, you got $50,000, you know?
Yeah, agreed.
His wife's there, so you can get all happy with his wife. Did you see someone in the YouTube during the preview? Their only comment was, "I like Gravely's wife."
Hey, our comment sections are a safe space to speak your truth, folks.
I'm sure he was talking about it as a corner woman, like how much advice she gives. I'm sure. Performance bonuses. Do you agree with the performance bonuses? There was a lot of good performances.
I'm fine with the ones that they did. They might not have been the first 2 I would have chosen, but neither of them is undeserving at all. Like, they're both really good performances.
All right. Even though it went to a decision, and even though I hate to give it to a main event person, I don't like to do that.
Yeah.
What Merab did, like just shooting 50 takedowns, I'm giving Merab one. And this is another thing I don't do. I usually give the performance to the guy who just works out there and just wipes the guy. So Nikita Krylov getting a submission in the first round would be one I'd look at. Bruno Silva's knockout, even like a Volkov. But you get an inverted triangle, that's so rare. And I know there's a lot of controversy with it, but I'm still giving it to Davey Grant.
Your performance bonus winners are Davey Grant and Bruno Silva.
Okay. I'm okay with that. Like, Bruno Silva had a great performance. And
I agree. But I'm with you on the Merab thing. Like, you and I almost never award one to the main event, and the UFC almost never awards one to a fighter that didn't finish the fight. But in both cases, it would have been a good night to make an exception.
Yeah, and they've given performances to like dominant champions in the main event. But you know what? Bruno Silva needed it more, so good. Now imagine that, like, they should do like when Dana White comes out and announces, they should do it like get all the fighters in the room and then announce it and have them like walk up like accepting, going up there crying with $50,000. Like, they should do that, like the award ceremony. Like, Bruno Silva, he'd still be thanking people right now.
Yeah. Read the open up an envelope like it's the Oscars.
Yeah, exactly. I have all the fighters there. Someone saying that's bullshit. I should have won that, and or they have to get up. There's like, they show the camera of the guy who was up for it. Like, they show Volkov and he's gonna pretend he's happy, for the guy. All right, let's. So you would have. I'm sorry. You said you would have gave it to Merab, and who was the other one? You said you would have given
Merab and Grant, probably.
Okay, so we went the same way. Okay. All right, let's get to the. You want to do? What do you want to do? You want to do? We got cut list. We got bulls and bears. We got dude seriously. What do you want to do?
Oh, cut list. You went mute for a sec, Keith.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to be professional and not shuffle my papers. All right, so the cut list is a way of me and Ben being really mean to fighters by saying we give the UFC permission to get rid of them. We'll add any of the listeners who they put their list. If you're on both mine and Ben's, we give permission. But if one of us does not pick them, we survive. Ben, I have 4 people on my cut list.
Wow, that's pretty wild. I have 1. I have 2.
Okay.
I have 3.
3. Okay. So, yeah. Like that's so wild. I have one more than you do. Technical cuts Romanov's corner nutritionist. Nice job. I'll go my first one. I hate to feel like guy gets brought in on 2 days' notice, but I'm cutting Jared Gooden again. I
Nope,
mean,
he's one of mine. Recut Jared Gooden.
Like you missed weight, so I'm cutting Jared Gooden. My second one, Lucas Bresker's like, yeah, it was fun, but he's not good. Like he's lost 2 fights, and I know a lot of people thought he should have won his first fight. I think I might even scored it for him, but like this performance today was really bad. So I'm cutting Bresky, however you say his name. Another guy. So sorry, did you have Bresky on yours?
He is not one that I had. So
he is saved. So the people's heavyweight can stick around another fight. I'm going with another guy I would have cut. He's now 0-2 in the UFC. Anton Turcal.
Yeah, I mean, he lost to a good fighter. Now he's lost to a fighter that the jury is still out. He's not been great in either performance.
Okay. And you kind of teed up my last guy perfectly, even though I did joke and say I'd keep him, but you just said the jury is still out, so he might not have another opportunity to fight again. I'm cutting Cedricus Dumas. I don't think he should have fought this fight in the UFC. I don't think he should be in the UFC based on outside stuff.
Yeah, like if you have a demonstrated inability to manage violence in your private life, you shouldn't get paid to get better at doing violence.
Yeah, I got photos of an alleged, and I want to put this out there. He was alleged to have pistol whipped the police, and there was more pro police than I am. The police did not have enough probable cause to make an arrest, so he was not found. I think Sherdog did the right decision by not posting those pictures because again, it was alleged. So once you see a picture, that kind of paints a picture and makes him guilty. But I think we did the right. I think we're fair by not posting the pictures. But if you saw the pictures I saw, they're extremely bad.
And I saw them as well as part of the editorial process. They're prejudicial is what like an attorney would argue if someone tried to show them in court, and they'd be overruled. But yeah, because you'd be like, I do not want the jury to see these fucking photos. Yeah.
It's like I'll give you guys a little trick of the trade. So one thing I do a lot, if some people don't know, I don't work full time for Sherdog. I was supposed to work full time for Sherdog, but I think Mike Fridley's the head boss. His exact words was, Ben makes way too much money for us to afford anybody else. I think that was his exact words.
That's exactly it.
Ben Francis Hangano Duffy over here. So and we have a lot of lawyers in Sherdog who, if you have a child molestation case, the first thing a prosecution I've learned that they like to do is either if you have a confession or if you have a witness statement from a victim, whichever one is the most chilling, haunting, you play that the very first thing. And the reason why you do that, you get the jury on your side immediately. And you everything they lay out afterwards, the defense, you've already hit them with a knockout. So I don't know where we're going with that. Anyways, back to so who was the one did you have one that I didn't have on my list?
No, all I had was Gooden, Dumas, and Turkali.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you had Dumas too. Sorry about that. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's do you want to do seriously or you want to do the Bulls and the Bears?
Dude seriously works for me, man.
All right. Dude, seriously, it's kind of self-explanatory, which we bitch about things. Ben, you have any?
I have one, and we kind of touched on it, but Petr Yan, dude, seriously? By the middle of the first round, you must have known what Merab's game plan was going to be. It was going to be to shoot takedowns constantly and then feint level changes, and when you flinched, punch you in the face. And it was even the same takedown for probably at least half of them. Dude, seriously, you had no adjustments to make between rounds. Merab's game plan should not have worked that perfectly on that elite of a fighter and that skilled of a fighter as Petr Yan. Maybe he needs a shakeup in his training situation. I don't know.
Yeah. I got a
Dave goes
couple.
fishing.
Yeah, I got a couple dude seriously, so we can throw out we can throw some of them out from the listeners too. Dev actually stole my dude seriously, where I was going with DC. Like, do some research. Like, dude, seriously, you did not know that Gooden missed weight? like you couldn't just scroll on Sherdog for 5 minutes and you would have found that. Another one is, dude, seriously, you thought Victor Henry was the first UFC win? I like how Victor Henry's like, first UFC win, and then he just he didn't want to correct Dana. Like, listen, if I get win the UFC, I'm correcting DC.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay on DC. And I love DC.
Yeah.
But dude, seriously, like, stop talking about Tony Gravely winning the SoCon conference wrestling title. Like, it's, dude, so everyone who knows anything about NCAA knows that's the worst division in college football, like college wrestling. Like, that's that might be worse than win like a D3 national championship. Like, they had one All-American last year in the entire conference of all the 10 weight classes. Like, come on, dude, seriously.
And it just has no bearing on Gravely as an MMA wrestler. Like, it's just a stat that he knows, and so he's going to say it every time.
Yeah, I mean, if it's Big 10, Big 12, something like that, even like an ACC. I mean, there's only 6 teams in the ACC or something like that, but still, not yeah, dude, seriously. And my last one, like Alexander Romanov, you gas out bad in your last fight, so your strategy is to come in 30 pounds heavier. Like, dude, seriously, that's like me running at 5K and like throwing up in the finish line and going, I'll sign up for that. I'll sign up for the half marathon next week.
Yeah.
And then not even running, nothing, just, yeah, dude, seriously. All right, let's go to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears is a stock market reference. We do it 3, 2, 1, like hockey. The Bulls are the list you want to be on. The Bears are not. Let's go positive. Let's do Bulls. Do you mind if I go first?
Go for it.
All right, I'm gonna go with Nikita Krylov as my number 3. He's won 3 in a row in a division that is kind of shallow right now, for being honest. He wins 1 or 2 more, you might be looking at a title shot for Nikita Krylov, where if you told me a year ago that he was cut from the UFC, like, that wouldn't have shocked me either. So Nikita Krylov on a rise, and it's fun. My number 2, I'm going to go with the GOAT team. I'm talking about Amanda Nunes. She left American Top Team, starting her own team, and now she's actually getting fighters to come to her. And I think the first one that I know of in the UFC that came to her, Ariana Lipsky, and she looked like a completely different fighter. So maybe bad for future fighting Amanda Nunes, that she might maybe just make it easier for her, just turns over to a coach. But yeah, so far so good for her. I mean, I don't think she was in the corner. I didn't see she wasn't in the corner, no, but they trained and they give a lot of credit. And my number 1, no brainer. It's got to be Merab. I mean, 9 wins in a row. I think it should be 11 in a row in the UFC, setting the all-time record for takedown attempts, and just incredible win. He's going to be in our top 3 or 4 in the Sherdog bantamweight rankings.
He was already number 3.
Oh shoot, jeez.
Like, he was already ahead of Jan in our rankings. So he's going to sit tight.
I didn't even realize that. I thought who's number 2?
That's a great question. Give me 10 seconds.
Is it O'Malley?
No.
He beat Jan. That's what I was.
No. No. Sorry. Our rankings are Sterling, Merab, O'Malley, Jan. Yeah.
So Merab was already number 2.
Yeah, Merab was already number 2, so he kind of sits tight.
Oh, well, fuck me then. All right, Ben, go with yours.
Okay. All I'll do is I will add. I'll add a couple because I agree with all of yours. Let me add Jonathan Martinez. He came in as comfortable 2-1 underdog, 2.5-1 underdog to a guy named Nurmagomedov, and he won a unanimous decision. It was a super close fight, but like I said, usually the guy named Nurmagomedov wins the super close, gets the super close fight, gets the decision called. It's probably the best win of his UFC run, and this guy that came to the UFC as the most after of afterthoughts, is all of a sudden a legit contender, and we're talking about a top 10 opponent for him. That's a feel good story to me. Go Texas. And hey, Josh Fremd, gets his first UFC win, and couldn't have gotten it over a nicer guy. Good for Josh.
Yeah, nice job, man. All right, let's go to the Bears. Ben, you're on a roll, so I'll let you kick that one off.
Okay, Bears. Rafael Assunção. He was a minute or two and a controversial call away from maybe being one of the few guys to be able to walk out of this sport on a win. I was talking to Dev earlier today about just how rare that is. Like how many fighters who have fought in a major promotion leave on a win. And I said, I bet there are more fighters that leave on a losing streak of 3 or more fights than leave off of a single win. Just it's hard for people to walk away, even when part of them knows it's time. So yeah, definitely a rough night for him. Alexander Romanov. There's losing, just about everybody loses sooner or later, but there's looking disinterested. Like I feel very different about Alexander Romanov's next fight than I did about this one. So yeah, that's a big one for me. And
didn't it have didn't it have like a Rico Rodriguez feel, like when Rico fought Pedro Hizzo after losing the UFC title, or like Mark Kerr. It just seems like it's just going to get worse and worse. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but
yeah, I mean, I threw out the Ronda Rousey thing, but I think Rico's a better example because Rico looked physically not as good as well and just seemed he folded. So yeah, I like that better. And Guido Canetti. It's been a fun little story. He's thrived in his 40s in a division that's normally an impossibility, but I think the fun seems to be coming to an end. It's just too good a division for them even to be able to find him fun popcorn fights to stick around a while longer. So I imagine he's going to be on his way out pretty soon here.
Yeah, I'll add a couple to the list. Juicex beat me to it, but I was going the same way. Awesome God, God is an awesome God. Nice, a very popular Christian jam. I didn't know it was by R. Swift. I thought it was Kirk Franklin. So that shows what I know. How bad of a Christian I am.
Well, it's probably one of those ones that's been recorded by a lot of different artists too.
That's a popular one. Rafael Assunção came out to that. So did Benson Henderson. They both lost and both finished, and they both retired. So our God is an awesome God. Not the should have one came out with like TNT or something like all the other ones do. My number 2, I'm gonna go. Even though I said I don't like doing this, I'm gonna go with the referees. I don't think it was a good weekend for referees. First, the Bellator Jason Hurst. I think that's one of the worst calls I've ever seen. I think he explained it well. I saw Aaron Bronstead, who's by the way, if you're not following Aaron Bronstead on Twitter, like, what are you doing?
He's second best Canadian after Mrs. Shillan.
Thank you very much. Yeah. For like, I don't know, what do we call it? A-list?
Yeah.
MMA media guys, the guys who travel. Aaron is as cool as the one you met. Like, he's super nice dude. I've met him many times. I did some podcast. He's just a cool ass dude, and he's fantastic on Twitter. So make sure you follow him. He explained it really well. But just to me, if a guy gets kicked in the nuts, you can't tell me for sure that the guy couldn't continue because he was kicked in the nuts, or if he was hitting the ribs. And if you call a foul, then it should have been no contest. Now, side note, I know Scott Coker said something about him hurting his rib and possible. I watched the interview with Scott Coker. Scott Coker said Scott Coker thinks he broke his rib, like guessing. He didn't say it like this is the news I got. Second of all, that's hindsight's 2020. Yeah. Like, you don't have that information at that time. It's just shitty. But I think Jason Herzog's the best referee in MMA, but he's human. I thought he was a bad call. Mark Smith had a terrible night tonight. Was it 2 or 3 fights? The Turcal fight, he didn't call grabbing the fence. The Volkov fight, he didn't grab the fence. I still think the better fighter won, but still, like, Warren did nothing. Keith Peterson, what was the Keith Peterson? Oh, that was the Rafael Assunção one
Yeah.
where I think that screwed a fight. And then even Herb Dean in the championship, in the main event with Persian kept like warning about pointing his finger. Like, how many times you got to stop in the first round and say, "Hey, your fingers." Like,
Yeah.
take a point.
Take a point.
Not that mattered in that fight, but to me, it was just a bad night. And then number one, it's got to be Petr. He's now lost a guy that was not that long ago was a champion. Is now lost 4 out of 5. He's lost 3 in a row. I think someone in the chat called him the Russian Henan Barao.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is correct, but I mean, it could be.
I mean, with Jan, it's not quite the same because Henan Barao just like physically went to shit in like overnight.
Well, I'll say this: he got smashed in the first TJ Dillashaw fight.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up getting smashed at the end of the second TJ Dillashaw, but it was competitive before. But yeah, it still he went down fast. So yeah, we haven't seen Jan fall that far, but
we'll see.
It could. So, all right, let's get to the grade. What was your overall grade for the card?
Give this one a B-. The top fight on the card was a serious eye opener. It was a shocker to me. I mean, I went under 500 on this card. I think definitely for the first time this year. Some of the prelims were not a ton of fun to watch, but overall, I'll give it a B-. Like, it was good to see Ariane Lipski do well, to see Victor Henry do well, to see Alexander Volkov salvage a bad situation, and obviously Merab just looked fantastic.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a B. Same thing. Like, there's a lot of very good like things I'll remember. Like, 2 years from now, you mentioned I'll remember something about that. So, like, one thing we didn't even talk about was Carl Williams' slam.
Somebody asked in the chat like where that ranks among the best heavyweight slams in.
It's not the best. It's not the best.
It's not.
Randleman on
UFC.
Oh, they asked UFC slams.
It's a little that makes it a little more.
There's got to be 1 or 2 in there that I remember. I remember Cain Velasquez slamming someone. Maybe it was like, I can't remember who it was, but Cain Velasquez slammed. Was maybe Travis Brown? He slammed really good. It was wild. It was wild. How about the cameraman who almost got knocked off in the same fight? That would have been awesome. not that I'm hating the cameraman, but
no,
just memorable. I don't know. That's probably up there. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 that we're not thinking of, but yeah, that was a good one. I want to say this real quick before we move on. 1 foot out the door. Put his or he or she's last comment. I did think of that for a second. I'm not going to say that on the air because, So, on the not the Gaethje backflip one, the one before that.
Yeah.
Toughest question of the night, as always, in the chat has been slamming. It's a little early night. Who was your listener of the evening?
Oh man, listener of the evening, and as usual, you regulars know who you are. You generally speaking are don't qualify. You're our people, but I don't know if this is 1 foot out the door's first time visiting us, but I certainly hope you choose to stick around, because like this is the first time that like you stood out to me for like both volume and power, as it were. But and made me laugh a few times. Yeah,
that was one of the ones on my list. Technical wealth is always on my list. It was super funny, but I'm not picking technical wealth because of that. I'm gonna go with Skynet. That's one I haven't seen that often. Skynet killed it tonight. Had me laughing sometimes. Good questions, good comments. So I think I'm going to give Skynet my listener of the night. So
Skynet taking the torch to Bellator matchmaking, which I'm certainly on board with.
Yeah. So there you guys have it. We have recapped all the fights. Some important things before we get out of here. We'll be back. We'll be doing a preview of UFC 286. Our last preview did really good. This preview did well. The last pay-per-view preview did extremely well. So let's keep that momentum going. So please like them, please share them, please do this. I really love doing this. So continue that. Reach out to me this week. We maybe do some kind of NCAA preview thing. I'm not guaranteeing that because it's going to get a little crazy during pay-per-view weeks, but I really do want to do something. Maybe even if it's like a 5-minute video, somebody do something. So if there's something you're interested in, having me talk about the NCAA wrestling, reach out to me. And we'll be back next week. It'll be much later, but we'll be recapping UFC 286. Yes, that's right. Last week we did a pay-per-view. This week we're doing a pay-per-view. It's the rematch, the trilogy fight between Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman, with Leon Edwards as the champion this time. Defending his belt. We'll talk about all that and all the other fights on the card. Ben, you want to say something?
I mean, not to tip my hand on this preview, but a lot of this matchmaking is let's get the Brits some winnable fights at home. I'm just going to say. Anyway.
There you go.
Not all of it, though.
There you go. We'll talk about all the Brits and all the rest of the fighters. And thank you guys for joining us. Hit like, share, do all that good stuff. See you next time.